Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a truly fascinating story, how the Earth's atmosphere and our ever-changing climate basically became the ultimate stage director for all of human history. We usually think of history as just this record of kings, empires, maybe human inventions, but what if I told you the invisible forces of the air around us, the seasonal rains and shifting global temperatures, were actually the real heavy hitters? They literally dictated where our ancestors lived, how we evolved, and exactly how our great civilizations rose and fell. It's an absolutely brilliant narrative, and we're going to unpack the whole shebang step by step.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to look at the atmosphere and climate, the mighty Indian monsoon, how climate shapes human evolution, the rise of river civilizations, and finally, the modern climate challenge.
Section 1. The atmosphere and climate, or as I like to call it, the invisible blanket.
So, imagine a vast blanket of air held super tight to our planet by gravity. Our atmosphere is overwhelmingly dominated by just two gases, nitrogen at 78% and oxygen at nearly 21%. But think about that tiny 1.1% sliver of other gases. Right inside that microscopic fraction are trace gases like carbon dioxide, and even at a minuscule 0.04%, it is an absolute game changer. It plays a massive role in trapping the sun's heat, basically acting as a giant thermal regulator so we don't freeze into a solid block of ice. Literally, without this invisible blanket, life as we know it simply wouldn't exist.
Now, it's completely vital that we distinguish between weather and climate. Weather is just what you see right out your window, the hour-to-hour, day-to-day conditions. Climate, on the other hand, is the big picture. It's the average over 30 years or more. To put it simply, weather tells you what you need to wear today, but climate tells you what kind of wardrobe you actually need to own.
Moving right along to Section 2, the mighty Indian monsoon, the rhythm of life.
This climatic force is so deeply tied to the rhythm of life that the word monsoon actually comes from the Arabic word mawsam, which means season. In fact, Arab traders sailing the Indian Ocean centuries ago relied heavily on this seasonal reversal of winds just to navigate their ships. Okay, so how does it work? It all boils down to the unequal heating of land and sea. During the summer, the massive landmass of India heats up way faster than the surrounding Indian Ocean, creating this vast low-pressure area. Moist winds from the cooler ocean are literally sucked powerfully toward the land, bringing those vital heavy rains from June to September. Then, in the winter, the whole thing flips. The land cools down faster than the ocean, creating high pressure that shoves cold, dry winds back out to sea. This one singular mechanism has completely dictated agriculture, festivals, and human survival in the region for millennia.
So we've seen how powerful the climate is, right? But that leaves us with a massive question. How did these immense global forces and shifting weather patterns actually shape the physical and cultural evolution of our earliest human ancestors? Like, how exactly did we go from wandering bands of hunter-gatherers to building modern society?
Let's find out in Section 3. Climate shapes human evolution from hunters to farmers. Human history is incredibly intertwined with these climate eras. For the vast majority of our history, during the Paleolithic period, we were nomadic hunter-gatherers, just getting by with basic stone tools. But then, around 12,000 years ago, something absolutely incredible happened. The Earth's climate warmed up. Ice sheets melted and forests and grasslands rapidly expanded into whole new territories. This transitional phase, the Mesolithic, offered early humans a much wider buffet of resources, like wild grains and small game. And because the climate was warming and stabilizing, humans didn't have to constantly stay on the move just to survive. This newfound stability is what sparked the Neolithic period. It was a true revolution where we shifted from just hunting for food to actually producing it through agriculture.
Through the painstaking work of archaeologists at ancient sites like Mehrgar, we can see the exact evidence of this climate-driven revolution. As the earth warmed up, people started domesticating plants, stuff like wheat and barley, and animals like sheep and cattle. They started building permanent mud brick houses, firing up pottery, and crucially, this is the big one, producing a surplus of food. Having extra food on hand, all made possible by a cooperative climate, was basically the spark that ignited human civilization as we know it.
Which brings us to Section 4, Rise of River Civilizations, the Cradles of Humanity.
There is just an undeniable link between geography, climate, and human progress. These four great early civilizations didn't just pop up randomly. They all thrived along major rivers. We've got the Harappan along the Indus and Saraswati, the Mesopotamian between the Tigris and Euphrates, the Egyptian along the Nile, and the Chinese along the Yellow and Yangtze rivers. These super predictable, life-giving water sources, which were replenished by seasonal rains and melting glaciers, provided the incredibly rich soil they needed for massive agricultural surpluses. And here's the thing, when you have excess food, not everyone has to be a farmer. That free time is exactly what allowed these societies to invent writing, establish complex governments, build entire cities with standard weights and baked bricks, and construct those massive monuments we still marvel at today.
But here's the catch. While these ancient empires built breathtaking temples and these mind-blowing irrigation systems to harness nature, their survival was still intimately tied to environmental stability. When the climate shifted, like when rivers dried up or flooded disastrously because of environmental changes or overused resources, well, even the absolute most powerful Bronze Age civilizations faced total collapse or radical transformation.
And that leads us right into Section 5, the Modern Climate Challenge, altering the stage. For thousands of years, we've basically been the actors playing on the stage of the Earth's climate. But today, thanks to rapid industrialization, massive deforestation, and burning fossil fuels, humanity is actively destabilizing the very stage that allowed us to flourish in the first place. An incredibly stark, tragic reminder of this fragility is the 2025 Punjab floods. This wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a compound crisis. Yes, for sure, there were naturally heavy monsoon rains, which were intensified by western disturbances bringing in extra moisture. But those natural forces were disastrously aggravated by human-made factors. We had built weak river embankments. People had settled and farmed way too close to the riverbeds, completely wiping out the natural floodplains. On top of that, years of silt buildup in the rivers, mostly due to upstream environmental damage, drastically reduced how much water the rivers could actually hold. It's a perfect, heartbreaking example of what happens when natural climatic rhythms crash head-on with poor human management.
To protect our shared stage, we absolutely have to reduce our carbon footprint. Remember that tiny, tiny fraction of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere we talked about at the very beginning? Well, human activities are pumping massive amounts of extra greenhouse gases right into that blanket, trapping way too much heat and triggering these crazy extreme weather events. But hey, we actually have the power to act through sustainable daily habits. It's all about conscious choices, walking or taking public transport instead of driving everywhere, rigorously switching off appliances when you're not using them, using our precious fresh water judiciously, and just completely ditching single-use plastics. Every single one of these actions directly lowers the greenhouse gases we emit.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, really empowering question. Look at your own daily routine, your own habits. What 2 simple choices will you pledge to change today? Because as history shows us, our fate is entirely intertwined with the climate. By taking action right now to reduce our carbon footprint, we can ensure that this magnificent planet remains a stable, thriving place where the next grand chapters of human history can safely unfold. Thank you so much for joining me, and I seriously challenge you to make that pledge today.